2018, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison by an algorithm for the crime they didn't commit. These producers promptly escaped from maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground. Today, still wanted by social media, they survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the smAsh team.
All right, we are live, folks. And we're going to give you one more minute of lead time here, and we'll be right back to talk about everything from coronal holes to crazy articles, cosmology stuff, and more. So stay tuned. Again, I'll be back in 1 minute. All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Those of you who are here live and those of you who are here in the future. With the sun at 193 angstroms, we see a pretty significant coronal hole forming here, a little south of the equator, right there. And let's look at some more views, such as 304 angstroms. And this is the last 7 hours. There's the last 7 hours at 304 angstroms. Now, before we move on to more views of the sun here, I want to direct our viewers to solon.info/solar, as there is a lot of important information located on this site, which I am not aware of in any other location. So a lot of well-updated information here, everything from electron fluence to solar cycle comparisons, a lot of data, folks. So check out solon.info/solar and try to be able to understand the distinction between your ass and a hole in the ground. Let's do one more view of the sun here in the last 7 hours. Colored magnetogram. As again, sunspot 2740 has lost its designation as a sunspot. It's now just a plage. And here's a zoom in of 2741. Still a little bit of activity cracking out of there. We still see kind of a three-way split on that central umbra. And there was a C-class flare late last night universal time. So, and let's move on to the magnetic lines view. Here's 193 angstroms. There's that. And let's take a look at some details here on solar ham, as I'd like to show folks something we don't always look at here, the map, the synoptic map. So if you click on map, this is going to show you the regions. And then every day, somebody does this little drawing. If you think you see something in a certain view, head to Solar Ham, click on this. And this will show you things like filaments, coronal holes, etc. It will also tell you the polarity of things. So this one was done by, it looks like Dahl. The forecaster was Dahl. So anyway, check out solarham.net. Sunspot 2741, still alpha class, and there's the magnetograms. Next, we're going to move on to the real-time solar wind. As we have shortened today's report, we've removed a bunch of segments and added some segments. We see the BZ has just recently dropped into negative territory. Bad news for earthquakes, as well as a bunch of 180-degree areas here. These are all probably coronal hole associated magnetic connections. We are also expecting a coronal mass ejection impact to hit today. So it'll probably be, we're looking at about 5 or 6 hours from now. And we're also going to examine that C-class solar flare from the perspective of stereo A. So solar wind density is now, looks like it's about 8 protons per cubic centimeter. Phi angle is 136. That's awfully close to a 180-degree angle. Could indicate sun to earth magnetic connection. And solar wind speed has recently dipped down to about 430. Actually, it's come up a little bit from there. It looks like about 440. Anyway, let's move on to more data. But first, let's talk about bikes. If you don't have one in your doomsday prepping catalog, garage, shed, bunker, time capsule, put a bike in your thing and shop for it at theveloshop.net. That's our team, by the way. If you want to sponsor the team, email me at smAsho@gmail.com. Thank you, donors. Please visit the links in the description if you haven't already done so. And follow me on Instagram. It's a little more personal. Here's some shenanigans from yesterday.
We're going to be repeating this.
Well, I think it's about time to go, dudes. What say you?
45. Which means
Doesn't matter if it's 44 degrees or not. Time to do a bunch of miles.
Here's the Lehigh Valley Velodrome, otherwise known as the Valley Preferred Cycling Center.
Oh, why, with the tar.
Tar and chips. We hate tar and chips.
What?
Anyway, here's a ride I did yesterday. It was 54 miles. Mostly solo. I rode with the club for about 13 miles. So thanks again, donors. It's making a huge difference. You have no idea. Please check us out on Patreon. We don't have a lot of content there yet, but it's going to happen. We're going to go full time with these videos, folks. Also check out smAsho.org. If you're wondering where the name smAsho came from, it came from gaming in 1999, and I've restarted my gaming campaign. So check it out. I'm skill ranked 15-17 right now. I've only played 2 or 3 maps for rate. Check out enemy territory if you like gaming. Here's the mission. It's to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space, weather, and Earth effects, to connect to and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including but not limited to the sciences that you see on the screen, to assist mankind by advancing the study of predictive phenomena in order to optimize value, reduce risk and liability, save lives and resources, and adapt no matter what the adversity is, and to not be ossified in our beliefs, and to treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion. At spaceweather.com, some interesting articles there. Last night we saw some, actually 2 nights ago, they saw some Steve during the geomagnetic storm over British Columbia. Check it out. It's a line of nitrogen emission, which looks a bit like a halo, but that's not quite what that is, folks. It's more like the aurora, but it's basically an odd line of ionization pathway going through the atmosphere. Read up on that. Also, check out the golden handle. This was taken in Zimbabwe. So anyway, check out spaceweather.com. I would note that the 10.7 centimeter radio flux has dropped down to 74, still well above predicted values. Next, we'll look at spaceweathernews.com. Let's zoom in on that C flare. Whoops. Okay, it was too long ago. Anyway, there's the C flare. It was a C2, and we're going to look at it a little more closely in a moment. KP index is down to 2. Magnetometer is looking a little more normal here. And this is going to have major perturbations today when the coronal mass ejection hits. I would forecast a KP of 6. We may get a major storm again, where it does go up to 7. I'm expecting more like a 6, because this coronal mass ejection appears to be a little bit less directly hitting the Earth. Anyway, let's continue on here as we're trying to keep these videos as short as humanly possible. Looks like the electron flux is in a trend of going up right now. And charging hazards are quite minimal. F2 layer is looking discharged, especially on the daytime side. Those of you not aware, the way this map is the daytime side is right about here. You know, the sun is going to be over this area. And you can always see the highest frequency portion of the F2 layer trailing the sun, chasing it by an hour or two. So, yeah, daytime side is looking pretty discharged right now. There will be a large charge disparity occurring when the coronal mass ejection hits the magnetosphere. We probably won't cover it, but there is a possibility that we'll cover it as it happens, depending on where I'm located, as I will be traveling as I do practically every day. Look at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard first. Look at the GOES X-ray imager as we saw a C-class flare. So let's allow our viewers to check it out. Yeah, there was that C-class flare. Not particularly exciting. And let's look at the last GOES C3 to see if we see any ejecta coming out of it. And I believe that's Jupiter or Saturn entering the frame there. I think it's actually Saturn. But don't quote me on it. And I'm not looking it up. Well, I don't really see any ejecta there. What about you? You see any ejecta, folks? Maybe a little bit coming out of the west, but not a lot from the SOHO's perspective. And let's look at the Enlil. Again, expecting that CME to hit late in the day UT. It looks like this has been reformulated a little bit. It looks like a more direct hit than I remember seeing last time, but hey, there's a lot of data here. So we see a low plasma pressure zone behind the first CME. Second CME looks pretty direct hitting, so could be similar to the previous one. Expecting a KP 5 to 7, so yeah. Expect to see some effects on power grids and so forth as a result. There's the aurora forecast, and it looks like the ionosphere is looking pretty funky here. That doesn't look right. Let's move on to the total electron content and see what this has to say. All right, I'll let this play through here. That's Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard image looked very highly charged over North America, and that didn't look right. So let's see what this shows. No, electron flux levels look pretty normal to me. In fact, kind of low. You folks on the equator, your GPS should be working pretty good, actually. Next, we'll look at the Gong 2. Keep in mind this data 1 hour and 54 minutes old. And it looks like boundary crossing has probably already occurred here. We are back into a south solar polar field oriented heliosphere, which is represented by the red. And as those sunspots set, we should settle back into a very low level of activity because we don't see any active regions. Keep in mind, magnetic environments can change instantly with absolutely no warning. Thanks for understanding the distinction between your ass and a hole in the ground, viewers. Milky Way galaxy team for the win. If you're viewing from a different galaxy, please leave a comment. That's interesting. Here's where stuff's located. And that's undoubtedly Venus coming into view on the LASCO. So, yeah. Saturn and Jupiter nowhere near the sun side, obviously. So anyway, if you get up before dawn, you should be able to see Jupiter and Saturn on the ecliptic, so have a look. Next, we're going to go to Space Weather Beacon at Stereo A. We want to see if any of that plasma got blasted off during that C flare. And I think some did, and it looked like it was going to miss the Earth to the west, but we're going to check it out anyway, as we assume nothing. And I'm not sure what I saw there, if anything. Let me just shrink this down a little bit so I can access the slider. The flare would have happened right around this area. And it looks like Stereo A did get hit with X-rays at the time. Check it out. That's probably the X-ray flare right there. Keep in mind, folks, electromagnetic radiation takes about 8 minutes to get to the Earth. Solar ejecta, in other words, coronal mass ejections, take days to get to the Earth. Please understand the distinction. An X-ray flare is electromagnetic radiation, totally different from a coronal mass ejection. And we don't need an X-ray flare to have a coronal mass ejection. Sometimes they happen without a flare. So anyway, we see this large plasma protrusion right here, which we've been watching since yesterday. And it's not doing much of anything. So it doesn't seem to have been blasted off because of that flare. In fact, due to its location, I don't even think it's associated with sunspots. So anyway, it's hard to see this kind of stuff when you're looking directly at the sun, as features get hidden by other features, let's say. All right, let's move on here. I'm trying to keep it short. We've got outdated data. All right. Check out inthesky.org if you want to get yourself a nice sky map. I ask you, where were you in Cygnus Rose? It was a long time ago, and it's going to be a long time until it sets. Some stars in the sky are more important than others. And anyway, if you get up before dawn, check it out. Jupiter and Saturn on the ecliptic. And the moon is just about to set. Next, we've got magnetosphere movies. One of the more visually interesting segments where I get to shut up for a few minutes. Here's the velocity. And we're going to see this increase today. We will see a big perturbation in this when that CME arrives. For now, pretty calm. Here's the density. A little bit elevated beyond solar minimum levels. We're not going to get into everything that we track the solar activity with, but there are a lot of different variables that our viewers may not understand. We're going to go over one each day, starting tomorrow. Here's the pressure. And this is a pretty normal environment here. Everything is looking pretty symmetrical in terms of charge disparities. Nothing to write home about yet, but keep watching this throughout the day, because when that CME hits, you're going to see some magnetohydrodynamic fireworks. Next, we're going to look at ground perturbations over the globe and over the poles. As we look down the Earth's Z fields, which are here on the south, and on the north, we have two of them. There's one over here, and there's one over here. You start going up to the North Pole and using your compass, folks, you'll find some strange readings, as we have two North Poles. If you weren't aware, glad to have informed you. Here's the view from the globe. And we see the standard creep into the Indian Ocean. And minor perturbations there over northern Canada and over Siberia. We're going to look at cosmic rays. Here's Apatity. Nothing to write home about there. There's Barentsburg. No big deal there. Here's Athens, which showed us some anomalous data. It'll still show up. There you see that anomalous data. Nothing too exciting there. Here's Mexico. And if we're not leaving these on the screen long enough for you folks, just pause the video. We'll be here when you get back. For some reason, I clicked that again. Here's Moscow. Here's Oulu, Finland. I would note the cosmic rays were higher in 2009 and 10 than they are now. Here's DOMC Antarctica. And here's DOMB Antarctica. If you weren't aware, cosmic rays cause cloud nucleation, especially of low clouds, and they cool the planet. Yes, that's right. Cosmic rays cool the planet. Let's go to zooniverse.org as we get a little more spaced out here and talk cosmology, where we classify a galaxy before your very eyes. You should too. Check out zooniverse.org, the largest citizen science project in the world. It's Galaxy Zoo Project. Is it an edge on disk? Well, certainly not. Is there a bar? No, there's no bar. Is there a spiral arm pattern? Well, certainly not. Is there a bulge? Well, viewers, is there a bulge? Good afternoon, Harry. Where are you located? Oh, I can never remember, and I apologize. Thank you for joining us, smAsho staff, our badass moderator. Welcome, Terrence. How is it going in Kitchener? I think you mean Kitchener. 45 degrees, huh? When I went out on my ride yesterday morning, it was 44 here in eastern Pennsylvania. So very cold, very cold. A late spring, again, delayed plantings, an early winter, a late spring, record snowfall in the northern hemisphere. And Bill Nye is telling us that the planet's warming. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We had a broadband outage in Pennsylvania, actually. In fact, we're lucky that our internet service is up. Our provider sucks. And they will remain unnamed. It's RCN. Is there a central bulge, folks? I'm going to say large. Is the galaxy merging or disturbed? I'm going to say major disturbance. I'm not fully sure. Those could be jets. That could be overlap, but it looks like there's real interaction right here. Keep in mind at Zooniverse.org's Galaxy Zoo project, when you classify these galaxies, you're only classifying the central galaxy. So you have to think of it from that perspective. Do we see rare features? Well, there's a bit of a ring. That could be a lens or arc. I'm not exactly sure. It looks irregular. There's clear dust lanes. There's clear overlap. So that's an interesting one. And we hope you'll do a little bit more checking into it. This one just looks like plain overlap, folks. Will you be the citizen scientist to classify that galaxy? Well, will you? Check us out on Facebook if you'd like to be censored and throttled, shadow banned. Facebook's super good at that and having a political hack agenda. Was that too vulgar? We're not a fan of Facebook's algorithms. They're not so good. Follow us on Twitter also. And thanks for smAsho staff for putting this up while it's still live. Well done. Here we are on Minds, minds.com/smAshomash. Check out our video from yesterday featuring Bill Nye's stupid looking face on the thumbnail. Whoops. What did I click on there? Must be a group. Anyway, oh look, we're part of the Nova Scotia group. We're wondering if the Trailer Park Boys are on there. Shout out to the Trailer Park Boys. If you like the music, check us out on SoundCloud. Links in the description. Also, soundclick.com/Golden Cat Productions. That's my record label, which emerged in the year 2000. And that's why there are hundreds of songs. Perhaps you'd like to hear some. Look at some articles. After I say, subscribe to the channel, folks. We got original music. We got information nobody else is covering on the entire internet. So if you haven't subscribed yet, whatever. Severe floods hit Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. One person killed, several injured. Also a tropical cyclone headed toward northern Queensland, Australia. Heads up, Oceania. Let's look at earthquakes. Looks like we have some significant earthquakes kicking off all around the Ring of Fire. 4.2 at extreme depth in Japan, 423 kilometers. 4.6 at Japan, also at depth. Heads up, Japan, you are in the warning zone. 4.6 at Greece, the antipode of Fiji. Kind of freaky. And as the Middle East quakes continue, Yemen sees a 5.1. Here's a 5.3 at New Zealand. Shout out New Zealand. It's pretty far north. Let us know if you felt it. Was it downgraded? How about a 4.6 at Mexico? Near Baja, once again, uptick there. 4.5 in Indonesia. And a 4.8 at Egypt. 4.7 at Russia. Quite far inland. 4.8 at China. 4.1 at Greece. 4.5 at Chile. That one's at depth. 5.1 at Argentina at depth. So the quakes are not done, folks. There's going to be more quakes jumping off. Solar activity is going to drop. Coronal holes are going to start magnetically connecting to the Earth. Be on alert for earthquakes, folks. Here's a 5.7. Papua New Guinea. Hope everybody's doing okay there after that 7.7 downgraded to 7.5 magnitude quake 2 days ago. So 4.4 in Chile, 4.4 4.2 in Guatemala, 4.8 in Ecuador. Significant uptick here, folks. A 4.9 India, 4.4 Mexico. Lots of quakes, lots of quakes. If you live in an earthquake-prone area, please have a disaster plan, especially if you're seeing deep quakes and low-pressure zones over top of your head. Let's look at some low-pressure zones, as there is an obvious correlation. And get that Lower Saucon Township crap off the screen, because that ain't where I'm located. Oh, jeez. Don't try to stalk me, Windy. You have no idea where I am, and no, you can't find out. We'll look at pressure maps. And we'll let this play through. Anyway, we'll let this play through Friday into the weekend. We see a series of multiple low pressures cascading across the central U.S. once again. Looks like more rain's going to be hitting by the weekend, folks. And again, check out that cyclone about to hit Australia. Lots of stuff going on. And we got to continue here before we run out of time. Trying to shorten the videos, folks. We promise. Here's today's volcanoes. Tacona producing a 7,000-foot plume. Pavlov, a new one to the list. Low-level seismic tremor and increased steaming has been observed. It is notorious for not giving much warning before erupting. So AVO has raised the alert as a new eruption may start at any time. Steam coming out of a volcano is an indication of an explosive eruption about to happen, folks. So we're going to be eyes on that. Sabancaya producing a 27,000-foot plume. Simmering down from a 28,000-foot plume. Please do not attempt to do the Fosbury flop over that. Here's a phys.org article where people don't understand biology. Neanderthals and modern humans diverged at least 800,000 years ago. Now let me speak on this for a moment, as this article is for further reading. Now, most modern human beings have some Neanderthal DNA. What does that mean? That means that Neanderthals and humans are the same species, because the definition of a species is ability to interbreed and produce fertile offspring. So this idea that Neanderthals are a different species than Homo sapiens is incorrect. Otherwise, they would not have been able to interbreed with Homo sapiens. The same thing falls into birds. You could have a nuthatch that lives on the East Coast that looks totally different from a nuthatch that lives on the West Coast. They're perfectly capable of interbreeding, which means they're the same species. Don't get confused by this subspecies-species nonsense. A species is an animal able to interbreed with itself and produce fertile offspring. It's quite simple. Neanderthals are humans. Here's another phys.org article about China's Chang'e 4 mission, where it's discovering new, quote, secrets, end quote, from the far side of the moon. Recommended for further reading, it does demonstrate a fundamental misunderstanding of how craters are formed. And this totally throws off their science, because let's just say the tools in their astrophysical toolbox lack electrical discharge craters. I don't even understand how this can be a headline, Iceland volcano eruption in 1783 to 84 did not spawn extreme heat wave. I don't know who thought volcanoes cause heat waves, but that's incredibly stupid. Volcanoes are a planet cooling force, not a planet warming force. They spew ash and things like carbonyl sulfide into the atmosphere, and these things cause more clouds, especially low clouds, to form. Also, volcanoes tend to erupt at times of high cosmic ray flux, which also causes more clouds to form, especially low clouds. The ones that give you a dreary, rainy, cold day and cause additional snow to fall in places like the Northern Hemisphere 2 years in a row. Here's an article from Extreme Tech, which makes me laugh and laugh because when I heard Google was entering into the world of hardware, I laughed and laughed. Turns out they've settled a class action lawsuit where they'll pay owners up to $500 for buying these junky phones made by HTC. As if Google doesn't spy on you enough already with every Android phone, Google owns the Android operating system and installs a bunch of bloatware that barely functions on the phones. They've even created hardware so they can spy on you just a little bit better. Ha ha, Google, transcribe this. Congratulations, how's your share price doing? How about some zero hedge stuff, such as global trade collapsing to depression levels? If you weren't aware, well, at least now you know the difference between your ass and a hole in the ground. We've been citing crop losses for the last 2 years all over YouTube, and I've been citing them for the last year. And yeah, have you bought any commodities? Do you have any physical silver? Are you prepped in any way? Do you have giant bags of beans that you'll be able to sell for massive profits? Anyway, let's take the moment to talk also about how tariffs are stupid. Tariffs are nothing more than a tax assessed by the government, which you, the consumer, will pay. So the poorest folks are the ones that are going to pay the price for those tariffs, not big business, not China. All the retailers have to raise their prices to account for the stupid, idiotic tariffs. The government should not be interfering in economics. So, dear President Trump, get out of economics, especially if you don't understand it. If you think tariffs are okay, you're wrong. Tariffs are stupid. Don't tax us more than you've already taxed us. Let's get spaced out again and look at an article from 2015. If you weren't aware, there's a super void, a void even larger than the famous Boötes void. This one is estimated to be 1.8 billion light years across. And if you want to find this article, just do a DuckDuckGo search for super space void. Dear Google, transcribe this. DuckDuckGo is an objective search engine. Let me repeat that. Google, DuckDuckGo is an objective search engine. Your search engine is not. Your search engine is a political hack. Here's another lesson from your ass versus a hole in the ground. How's the share price doing, Google? Is it hurting a little bit? Let's look at the last 8 hours of solar activity, as we should see a lovely setting sunspot 2740 producing lovely magnetic loops on the western limb. Let's open up the chat and get out of here as it's getting late. Welcome, Gone Baby Boom. I don't remember you, so cheers. Yeah, I know. I hear you, Terrence. It started raining here this morning, too. I stuck my head out the window and I said, hey, weather, F you, rain. I don't think the rain cared. Anyway, we're so out of here. It's about that time. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Thanks, donors, especially. You are making a massive difference in the operation. And remember, when you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Just don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your arteries.